And I don't drink, I don't smoke, I've never done drugs. I've never judged people who do that because I know people do it for different reasons, especially if they have health issues. And I've never judged people on that. My question was, when people who are healthy, just normal healthy people who drink or have any kind of addiction, and they do get addicted, for people like me who don't do it, is the addiction, I don't mean to sound stupid, is the addiction itself like when people eat junk food and they just can't stop because they get into a habit? Or is there something more serious and strong that I just can't relate to? Like, what is the actual addiction?
First of all, there's a
great question.
Yeah, this is one of the crucial questions of our time, and in fact, on how we define addiction. If you actually look in the DSM-5, which is sort of the psychiatric manual for listing every psychiatric disorder that exists, addiction per se is not in there. They have it under compulsive disorders. So we're in a situation now where there's still a lot of debate about what is addiction, what isn't. And part of the reason for that is that we know that the brain does have these compulsive disorders. And the frontal lobe of the brain controls your ability to control impulses about doing things or not doing things. So you hear about people that quit smoking cigarettes, and then all of a sudden they found themselves driving all the way to the gas station, buying a pack of cigarettes, and they didn't even realize they did it, and they're smoking. So we know that somehow the brain does operate on a subconscious level in an addictive process, and we know that the dopamine system has something to do with that. So what we don't know, though, is that, what can we really call full addiction? I mean, a person that has compulsive gambling issue is probably using the same reward system as someone who's smoking crack cocaine.
Right, and it's attraction, too. I mean, people get attached to certain behaviors.
Right. But that's psychological addiction based on a chemical process in your brain, right? So you have that component. Wait, there's that component, but then on top of that, there's other drugs that actually have physical addiction as well. So heroin you'll build tolerance to it, and then you'll actually be physically addicted on top of
pills.
and pills on top of the psychological addiction. So there's a multitude of levels and types and blends of addiction, and it takes a real professional to weed all that out and understand. And now that people are using multiple drugs, they're not just like alcoholics or heroin addicts or whatever, but they're using a multitude of drugs. That baselining and getting a person down to where I can actually look at them and tell whether or not what their major issues are. Do I have to deal with the psychological issues first before or they just need to be detoxed, and then they need to deal with their physical addictions first? These are complex problems that have to be dealt with at a treatment center, and it's making while detox, like I said, I can do it easier now. That doesn't mean that it's not still a very, very complex process and needs to be handled by professionals.
So, when I was asking this, I felt so guilty to ask, because I know when someone has a health problem or some physical or mental health problem, and smoking or drinking makes them feel better, as a human being, I sympathize so much. I would never judge them, but I just didn't know who to ask, because I didn't know, was this addiction like a junk food kind of an addiction, or like a pornographic?
Right, but even junk food addiction is serious. And they did a study on caffeine, which I thought was really interesting. With it was, I think, Mountain Dew they used, not to piss off Mountain Dew, but which I guess is Pepsi, but whatever. So they showed people. Now I pissed off Pepsi. Right. So, but anyway, what they did is they took the people that were drinking 5 sodas a day or more of Mountain Dew, and they put them in this study at this university, and they basically detoxed them, and they showed all the detox symptoms from caffeine, and it was startling. I mean, it was just amazing. Anxiety, huge amounts of anxiety, aggressive behavior, all these classic symptoms of addiction from caffeine addiction.
But that anxiety, that's not the same kind of strong pull that someone would have, like you mentioned, the physical addiction from crack, heroin, or even alcohol.
Actually, caffeine is physically addicting.
Similar, yeah.
Caffeine is physically.
Is it the same kind of pull, like same kind of like, I really need it, like that kind of?
It's in the neighborhood, right?
The idea. This is one of the things that's interesting about human beings and how we talk about things. We classify things, right?
Sure,
so we classify physical addiction, we classify psychological addiction, we compartmentalize ideas about human beings so that we can study them.
Okay,
right?
So everyone is different. Each thing is different. But
and they overlap and they affect each other, and it's much more complex. And that's why treating human beings is so difficult, because the amount of variables is exponential. No two people are the same, yet at the same time, they share common traits of addiction that we know that we can treat. So it's about being holistic in viewing all people as important and trying to join with them and understand all their unique problems, but then also getting back to centering on what the central problems are that we can deal with.
Bobby,
Okay,
thanks for calling in. We got to go,
Thank
but
you.
thanks.
Thank you.
We got to
Bobby.
bounce,
Thanks
but
for the
thanks,
call.
Bobby. Good call.
Thanks for the